Just thinking again about a video I made this morning when I was out walking the dogs. I was talking about how certain images and ideas can kind of colonize your mind, in that, I guess, in the way that Richard Dawkins talks about in some follow-up writings to the Selfish Gene, where he talks about memes, and memes being kind of parasitical. I think Dan Dennett talks about that as well. He's particularly talking about religions, but that's not really where I'm going with it. I was talking about certain video images, like certain pornographic images, like that viral video, 2 Girls, 1 Cup, that's going around the internet right now, and how I kind of refuse to watch it on the grounds that I just know it would colonize my mind, and I keep coming back to it in a way that I don't find very helpful. And other videos I've watched, or images that I've seen that kind of just sit there in my mind like a nail in a piece of wood, and keep just kind of acting like gravity wells for my attention in a way that I say I don't feel as helpful and useful. So I've been coming back to that again. I'm thinking, well, is that entirely a good thing? I should deprive myself of those things. What does it mean when I say those kind of things, or refuse myself those kind of experiences, because I'm being a bit of a chicken shit about contaminating the pristine landscape of my mind with something that might be some kind of strange attractor. And here I'm reminded of several things actually. Firstly, I'm reminded of something that John Carpenter said in relation to his horror films. And he described them, I think it was John Carpenter anyway, he described them as a kind of boot camp for the soul. And that phrase, I think, has been picked up elsewhere. There's a self-help book you can buy called Boot Camp for the Soul. And I think it's used in relation to other specific horror films now as well. But he talks about it in terms of that as a kind of way of, well, almost like a vaccination, or almost like a way of acclimatizing oneself to certain images, certain thoughts, certain concepts, so that they, so through some kind of processing, some kind of, through some kind of working through of that process, they cease to be gravity wells, they cease to be strange attractors, they cease to form deep grooves in the landscape of your thinking, that your thoughts can constantly fall into, but more by dealing with them, they kind of level themselves off. So that's the first thought about that sometimes an approach to certain kinds of video material can perhaps render it harmless. I'm also thinking in terms of my kids, really, because they play a lot of video games. And of course people say, oh, these video games, they desensitize you to violence, which maybe they do. I don't know. Then again, is that necessarily a bad thing? Maybe we should be desensitized to violence. Maybe we should deprive it of its power. Maybe we should level off that landscape in our minds that forces us to fall into that track. Does a desensitization to violence necessarily mean a kind of moral vacuum opening up, or does it mean something else? Do those things necessarily go hand in hand? And here I'm reminded of some Buddhist exercises to do with, they wouldn't call it desensitization, but they would certainly call it kind of acclimatization. Oh dear, dog behind the fence, no problem. I was reading in this interesting but troubling book called Stiff, which deals with different approaches and attitudes to the dead. But there's a Buddhist exercise, apparently, where you would go and stare at dead bodies in various stages of decomposition, and you just look and just be in the presence of death in its most graphic form, and you keep staying with that until it no longer affects you, or until you can reach a state of equanimity to that experience, And I don't really think anybody would call that kind of Buddhist exercise a desensitization in the way that you would say that about a video game. What you would probably say, if you were to say anything about it, is that you were trying to find a way to calm your mind. And by calm your mind, even in those great, highly charged circumstances, what you effectively are doing, I suspect, is again levelling out that groove in the landscape of your mind, taking away that valley and replacing it with a more placid, flat, level playing field type response to even those grotesque circumstances. And maybe even not just images, maybe even physical experiences. And here I'm reminded of that very famous image of the Buddhist monk setting fire to himself as a protest during the Vietnam War. And he's sitting in a lotus position, just engulfed in flames, apparently in a state of calm. You know, so what seems to be happening there is that not just visual images, but even the most tactile and visceral of felt experiences, which normally, I guess, would carve out a very deep valley in one's current experiences. Come on, you two, let's go down here. It may even be possible to level out that experience. So again, one enters a state of calm, a state where the ocean of one's consciousness, if you like, is stilled and has a perfectly level surface. I don't think it ever referred to that as being immune to violence or something like that. Anaesthatise to violence, you would call it something else, I think. So maybe I should watch these videos. I'm not going to. I can't bring myself to do it yet. But maybe in an ideal world I would be able to. And I would approach those with a view to trying to strengthen my soul and deliver a kind of state of calm and level off the neuronal pathways so they didn't carve valleys but became more